The waves beckoned to us as we stood on the cliff and looked down at the cave. Jade Beach was deserted and full of detritus from the sea, waiting for some company. Hawk pushed back the sliding rock, and we looked inside. Everything was fresh and clean and peaceful. It was not a place to discard slimy, molten garments covered with mud. I set my bag inside and headed down the rocky path to the beach. Hawk went inside to make a fire in the cold pit. I lumbered along the cliffs, severely restricted by the heavy, stiff gear, and finally jumped down into the sand. There was a cloud hanging over us, but the beach was under a bubble of air. Hawk was already shirtless when he joined me, and I could smell the sweat on his body as he removed my coat. Standing toe to toe, he was about 6 inches taller, but our bodies were copacetic. His powerful arms were sinewy and his wrists knotted with muscles. I would come to learn that this is the sign of a dedicated surgeon. He knelt before me and untangled the knot that held my heavy trousers, trying to pull them down while I fell backward. He laughed at the sight of me tangled up in that rubber camouflage and worked my legs free. When he stepped out of his old jeans and kicked them off to the side, I looked at him naked and waiting for me. I was filled with desire, as if a gift had finally arrived after a long drought. I tore off my clothes and jumped into the air with a big whoop. God, it was good to be alive. We ran into the surf like Aborigine warriors, plowing through the white water and diving under a big wave. The undertow pounded me for a minute, but it felt good to be wet and cool. When I surfaced, Hawk was swimming across the bay, flipping and body surfing with the current. He was like a dolphin in the ecstasy of discovery, a wild ocean animal. I laughed and watched him swim as I floated along and rode a wave into shore. My teeth were gritty with sand, but I was washed clean from the despairing climate of the fire. The grime was gone, and I felt like a new woman, very much alive and hungry for the taste of him. I telegraphed my desire with a splashing dive, where he met me between the waves, and we rolled over in the wet sand. When he kissed me for the first time, it was salty and hot, and he scratched my face with his beard. I put my arms around him and demonstrated a slower, sweeter version with my tongue. The spark that had been smoldering for months ignited under the power of the Pacific Ocean, and we were soon joined together in the water. I was very wet inside and out, and he entered my body easily. I wrapped my legs around him to be sure he would not get away, for I could feel the 1,000-year orgasm coming. The thunder in my ears pushed my senses to the stratosphere, flying, crying, releasing all that stuff that had been shoved back for another day. Now the salvation came rolling toward me in the form of this beautiful man who was obviously feeling his religion too. We were partners in a dance led by someone else. We could not stop and didn't want to. It didn't matter if we were watched. It didn't matter if the world stopped. We were going out in style. John Soaring Meadow hobbled out of the creek bed, wincing with pain. His left leg was bound up with a stick and probably broken in several places. It was touch and go those last 24 hours, but now the flames had passed and he was able to crawl along Perigo Creek to the meadows. He was running on empty, but fearless that he would reach the ranch. It was only a matter of time. He dragged himself upright and climbed the slope to the sprawling expanse of blackened grass where the helipad had been. It was barely dawn, but he could see far enough to know the house was gone. It was a fine kettle of fish to get this far and find no one in sight. There would be no help for him here, except for maybe a place to rest. He collapsed on the charred grass halfway to the house and lay there unconscious. Annika spotted him first as she dug new trenches for the garden. "Uma," she cried, "look!" She pointed to the figure staggering toward them, and they broke into a run. By the time they reached him, John had rolled over and was staring at the sun. "It's about time," he said, cracking a smile.